Guys, today we have an incredibly exciting video about Bitcoin, Ethereum, but also XRP. Especially with Bitcoin and XRP, I found a similarity regarding their all-time highs, where both were actually rejected at exactly the same point. And I want to share that with you. Not only that, of course, we'll also take a look at the liquidation heat map. You can see here we have a big cluster below us, which fits incredibly well with the CME Gap from about 2 weeks ago. Right in this price range, we have this liquidation zone, which is why at this point in time, even though we have a continuation pattern, which I'll share with you in a moment, I would be cautious. So I'm being cautious. This isn't investment advice, but I'm careful about blindly entering a long position now when we have liquidity and the CME Gap below us. That can happen very quickly. I don't mean that we're going to slowly dump further down from here. A quick liquidation week could come, pick up the liquidations, close the CME Gap, and then we could continue pumping afterwards. Because right now, Bitcoin is really just using this consolidation to calm down the whole market. The oscillators are settling, the RSI is settling in order to possibly continue the trend. But we're going to go through quite a few other things as well. This is going to be an exciting chart that I want to share with you. 10,000 Bitcoin holders. They're starting to sell off massively right now, really selling off heavily here at the all-time highs. But we also have a few others here. Who holds between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin? What are they doing right now? 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin. And I want to show you some comparisons of how they're acting, what they're doing, and where you might want to be a bit more cautious. We'll take a quick look at the really exciting chart now. Here we see the yellow area, what we're looking at here. Just a quick explanation. These are the people who hold more than 10,000 Bitcoins. When they're below the zero line, it means they're selling off Bitcoins, and the white line you see here is the Bitcoin price chart. You can follow that on the left here. We can see here that as the price kept rising, they even accumulated a bit more in this consolidation zone, but then continued to sell off, especially now at the all-time high. But what do they do much better than maybe us retail investors or other people? As soon as the price dumps, they start buying. You can see here that they bought a massive amount of Bitcoins again while the price was falling, and it dropped down to 56,000. That was in July 2024. And then on the way back up, they gradually sold off their Bitcoins. Of course, it's very interesting what they're doing here. Now, we want to compare this with the people who hold between 1 and 10,000 Bitcoins. And here you can see that at this point in time, they're actually chasing the price a bit, that they even bought Bitcoins at the all-time high. So I can zoom in a bit here. They actually kept buying right up to just before the all-time high at $118,632 and have now started to sell off their Bitcoins again. But what you can see here is that in some ways, their buying behavior is somewhat similar to that of the really big whales. In this case, unfortunately, during the dump downwards in July 2024, they sold off a lot, while real whales were accumulating, and then during this pump, when the price went back up, they bought Bitcoins and gradually sold them off again. But what's even more interesting now, and I think this is really fascinating, is that people who hold between 100 and 1,000 Bitcoins, you can see, and this is truly very interesting, that they actually tend to follow the price. That means if you look at the price chart, they basically do the same thing as the price. They buy while the price is rising and sell while the price is falling. And that's exactly what they're doing right now as well. What I find really strange though is that they're actually still accumulating at the top with Bitcoin, and they're really still buying in. And that's why this is going to get very interesting. Is this just one last purchase, and will they exit their Bitcoin positions again when the price falls, just like we've seen here and in other cases? Or does it mean that, just like here, with the price increase, we're simply in for another pump? This chart is really very interesting. I can zoom out again, and then you can actually see that the red ones, those who hold 100 to 1,000 Bitcoins, have in fact in the past, like here in 2022, when Bitcoin dropped from 48,000 down to 19,000, gradually sold off their Bitcoins and kept selling them off repeatedly. Whereas the big whales, and you can see this here in the yellow area, have been accumulating the whole time. And that's why it's really very difficult right now, after we've had an all-time high, and now that the big whales are selling off bit by bit and aren't currently buying in just because there's a dip, to predict how the price will actually move forward. And we can take a look at that on the chart. Although, as we already mentioned at the beginning, we have the CME Gap here. I really wouldn't ignore this CME Gap. In my opinion, we have liquidity lying below us. Now let's take a look. Around 115,700 to 113,000 US dollars. And this CME Gap, let's go into it. Where does it currently start? At 115,655 down to 114,150. So in this price range, and actually even a bit lower when I look at it here, that's where I see the opportunity to open new long entries. And personally, I'm not going long blindly right now. For me, it would really be ideal if we correct downward and pick that up. CME gaps get filled 90 to 95% of the time, and right now we have another small one. That means currently the price is at 117,670 here, while for Bitcoin at this moment we're at 118,510. I can also include the CME gap here again. If I zoom in here, you can see that if Bitcoin continues to pump, at tomorrow's market opening, we'll actually have a CME gap from this week, not last week, at around 117,600 US dollars. The more Bitcoin pumps now, I could imagine that instead of breaking out to the upside, we might come back down to fill this one CME gap and maybe even the second CME gap as well. Although, as you'll see no end, this is very interesting. We have this bullish counterpart here, which is actually a continuation pattern. That means we rise, we consolidate, the market makers accumulate their positions here, and then a breakout to the upside can happen. That would be roughly in the price range of where are we here if we break out exactly there. 133,000 US dollars. If we actually play this out at this point in time, and if we take a closer look now, it's very important on the daily chart that after these real highs in the RSI end, you can also see this again on the 4-hour chart. We had massive highs in the RSI, and now it has just calmed down a bit without dropping sharply, which could indicate a continuation to the upside. And keep in mind the price level of roughly 134,000 US dollars. And now we come to a comparison between Bitcoin and XRP. We're going to use the Fibonacci level. Bitcoin end, you've seen this repeatedly in my previous videos. When I draw in the Fibonacci extension levels, I also showed this in the live stream in the weekly chart. If you look at it here as well, how did I draw it? So you can see it too. From the last cycle high here down to the low, yes. And then the price moved upward from there. We actually have the rejection zones here, but we can also draw our extension on the Fibonacci so that we can see the level above. And you can see here the 1.618, how interesting that was on the weekly chart. That level was hit so precisely by the weekly candles so many times. But not just that, the 1.272 as well. Also take a look at the weekly closes we've had here at the Fibonacci extension levels. And where did we get a rejection now? At the Fibonacci extension 2, which is at 121,000 US dollars, we were a bit above that. The next Fibonacci extension level is at 135,807. Remember what I told you, if we actually break out to the upside here, that could be roughly the price target, depending on when and where we break out. That could actually land right there, and that's a really exciting level. And if we compare that, now I want to show you this again here. We have here, let me make this a bit bigger, the 2-level new all-time high for Bitcoin. And what do we have here with XRP? New all-time high for XRP. And where do we have that? Right at the 2-level Fibonacci extension. And there we just got a rejection, which is why the extension level for XRP is also very interesting right now. With the new all-time high, we actually move into the next level. Right? Just as a small example here as well, after we surpassed it, how strong and yes, valid this 1.272 level was with the individual candles. We're talking about the daily chart now, but just look at how validly the chart has bounced up and down here the whole time. That means the next price targets, if XRP continues to rise, are $4.13, $4.36, $5.35. We could actually see that, but I would always be cautious about corrections before we move on to Ethereum, which looks even more exciting today because it's been pumping non-stop for 8 days. I want to show you something now. The Creed 68 has calmed down a bit since my last video. But if we look at the last 7 days now, let's see which one has pumped the most. We can see here that we have double-digit pumps everywhere. I really have to scroll far, very far, if anything even comes up where there are only 1% pumps upwards. Okay, that's all well and good. But now, what's tricky is, let's take a look. What has pumped the most? With the exception of Pump Fun, which is a meme coin that was completely sold off after its launch, there were actually only, and that's still good double-digit percentage dumps in the last 7 days. And even that is limited to just 1, 2, 3 coins. Hyperliquid, PE and XMR. They only had a double-digit dump. And if you scroll down and take a look, except for the stablecoins, there actually wasn't a single coin that dumped or experienced a price drop in the last 7 days. The last 7 days, guys, take a look at this. Overall, if we leave out Pump Fun, we've only had 3 coins that had a slight correction over the last 7 days, and the rest are just pumping. And in fact, starting from the 18th coin, they are all in double digits. You really have to imagine that there's hardly anything in the red here. Be aware of this risk. When something is pumping this hard and going up so much and the hype is building, you might think, should I still get in now? Is this really the right time, or since a dump will definitely come, it always happens at some point? The only question is when, or is that maybe the better time? And we'll only really know that when it happens. Exactly. Now, about the trading bots, before we move on to Ethereum, you can see here 3 trading bots bonk is currently rising again. No problem, it's a short bot. Bitcoin has accumulated nicely here, and I also opened XLM after that pump. At the moment, Ethereum just isn't making it. It's still pumping. That's why we're moving on to Ethereum now. But these are the 2 that are still running at a loss at the moment. We just let them keep running. These are the community bots that I set up during the live videos. Of course, I always announce this here on YouTube. Either subscribe and turn on the bell, or I also post it in my Telegram group. Here's the history. There were also 2 other bots, SBK and Fartcoin. I closed SBK as well, also with a profit, but I still have a DCA futures bot. That one also brought in a decent profit. Unfortunately, you can only see that on the app. Exactly. And since we're already at fever, to wrap things up, now Ethereum. At the moment, it's probably one of the most exciting coins because it just doesn't stop. 7 days, or rather 8 days, without a correction. If we look at it now, daily chart, I just drew the fib level here as well, but we've actually had 8 days of non-stop pumping. If we disregard that one consolidation candle that closed a bit lower, then we've actually had even more days. And if we pump about 30% over 8 days without a correction, hats off. And here as well, if we take it from down here, since that was just a consolidation for the continuation, we've actually risen almost 50% now. 50% on an asset without a possible correction. I'm not sure if that can really continue like this. What's also very interesting right now is that we're currently testing our recent highs here. So Ethereum is currently trying, you can see with today's daily candle it's struggling hard, but these recent highs we've had here, which repeatedly caused brief rejections before the price went back down, are actually now in the process of being broken to the upside. So Ethereum is just on an incredible run, but on the daily chart, Ethereum is at a very overbought level with an RSI of around 88.15. If we look at this in the past, that's why I say still a bit of caution. Maybe it will keep going up. I can't say exactly how it will continue. I don't think anyone out there can say for sure. But when we're at such an overbought level and we really have to scroll far back to see the last time this happened, when we were this high before, there were at least corrections afterwards. This dump, so this correction here, and that's exactly what I'm talking about right now. A quick candle liquidating everything, 26.3%, just to catch a quick breath, liquidate all the longs, and then it can continue. And here too in the past, we see that when we reached this high with Ethereum, exactly here with such a high RSI level, there was first a brief correction. And we can see that in this price, that was our high. Then in 1 or 1.5 days, we lost almost 32%. And how hyped were we back then when Ethereum pumped non-stop for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days? A brief correction then continued upwards. And people thought, okay, that was probably already the correction. And then even the new longs got liquidated again. And only after that did it really continue upward. And that's exactly the kind of thing I would actually expect from Ethereum at this point, because we've simply broken through every Fibonacci level that could have triggered a correction, especially the 0.6, 18 zeros, 0.65 without any significant resistance upwards. To wrap up, let's quickly look at the Fibonacci extension, just as we did with Bitcoin and XRP. Here we have the 1.0 level, which corresponds to the last highs we had, which we tested twice. If we actually break through that to the upside and manage to keep pumping higher, the next price targets would be at the 1.272 Fibonacci level, which is around 4848 US dollars, followed by the next 1.618, which is very valid at 5,785 and the 2.0 level at 6,180. But what is exciting about the next Fibonacci level? So what would await us if we actually break through the 1.0 level to the upside and also surpass the previous cycle high? And this is very interesting now if I draw a line here and we look back at where Ethereum's all-time high was, it actually lies at this 1.272 Fibonacci level. And these are correlations that don't just come out of nowhere. Fibonacci, can't stress it enough, get familiar with it. I have a video on my channel under trading strategies where I explain exactly how all of this works. And the fact that this now aligns so closely with the 1.272 level is really, really interesting. I'm happy for my Ethereum packs, for my Ethereum long position, but honestly, I have to say, when everything is so hyped, when everything pumps this much, then a short dump is actually to be expected. And if that happens, a lot of people will be upset, but I will use ITIF. It really does happen to open new long positions here. So today's video was a bit longer, a bit more detailed, but feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see each other next time. Bye.